How's it going, everybody? Today I'll be showing you a video on the N7 Slayer Vanguard from Mass Effect 3. It's going to be a part of a new series of mine called Thoughts On. It's just the characters in Mass Effect 3 that I generally play and use, and really enjoy playing. So the N7 Slayer Vanguard is obviously a Vanguard, so its main moves are Biotic Charge, which is used in all the Vanguard classes. He's part of the Earth DLC, the Mass Effect 3, I believe. That's where all the N7 characters come from. So the way I spec'd this character out was I maxed out Biotic Charge, Phase Disruptor, and Biotic Slash. It's three main Biotic moves, as they were because they're all very powerful, and if you use them all correctly, you can have this character as a very, very powerful character. I maxed out Biotic Charge by putting points into Barrier for rank 6, because you'll get more Barrier back, allowing you to fight using your Phase Disruptor. Then I put it into Weapon Synergy. Shotgun Synergy is using the shotgun is also, you could do that, that's another viable option, but having the Power Synergy using Biotic Slash afterwards is a more viable option, I believe. And then after that I went with Range instead of Force and Damage, just because it's you don't want to level up Force and Damage just because you're not doing that much damage to a single person. You just want to take out weaker enemies such as Assault Troopers and use it more as a getaway get technique or something to set up another Biotic Slash. For Phase Disruptor I did Armor Damage instead of Barrier, because using the Barrier isn't using it for Barrier damage isn't as good, because you can get rid of barriers quite easily compared to Armor. I used Knockdown instead of Efficient Blast, but they're both viable options. Efficient Blast could be used as more of taking out stronger enemies, while weaker, using the Knockdown is good for getting rid of weaker enemies onto the floor. And then I did Damage over Radius, as the radius is already really, really large. Now for Biotic Slash, this is its main move, so you want to level this up correctly. So I put max points into it by doing damage instead of range, because it's already got a 20 meter range, which is really, really large, so you can get enemies from quite far away already. Then I put it into Detonation, because you can set off detonations with other characters. He can't set up his own, but if you're most of the time you will be playing with another Biotic character that has some type of Biotic ability, and the recharge speed is already so quick. Then I also put points into damage over radius, because a 2 meter radius is enough when you're mostly aiming at a single enemy, and if they're in groups, that's just as good. Now for N7 Slayer, this is up to personal preference. Same with fitness, but I put 5 points into N7 Slayer, leveling up all the weapon power damage I possibly can instead of weapon damage. So I went with power damage for rank 5, and I went damage and capacity for rank 4. These both level up your power damage as far as they can go in N7 Slayer. And for fitness, I only put 3 points into it, because this character will be a glass cannon, so you just have to stay protected. Now for guns, it's all up to personal preference. I use the N7 Piranha because it's one of my favorite shotguns, but any shotgun is really fine. For equipment, you want to put something on that will level up your Martial Biotic Amp, which will level up your Biotic damage. This will allow for more damage output on most characters, so don't use something like maybe just shotgun, because you'll mostly be using your powers more than anything else. The first move I'll be talking about is Phase Disruptor. Phase Disruptor is one of the moves that is unique to the N7 Slayer and a few other characters. Phase Disruptor uses your Biotic Barrier to actually, your barriers to set up a kind of like a hand cannon, kind of like what the Phantoms fire at you, except you don't get to fire yours as often depending on how you level it up. I leveled mine up so I can only fire 3 shots off, but it does knock down weaker enemies. This move is really quite powerful for how much damage it gets off armor, so using this, if you stay back and there's an Atlas or anything that doesn't really that relies on its armor quite heavily, once you get rid of its barriers, you fire your Phase Disruptor, and this will do a lot of damage to that enemy. But you do have to be wary, because you do lose your health, you do lose your shields, and once you lost your shields, you're going to be very vulnerable to any other type of attacks. This character uses this quite well, but you just have to be wary of it. That's the only problem with it. Just like the whole character, it's very weak, so you just want to stay back and maybe just fire it off only twice. The third time if you really have to, but I wouldn't recommend it, as this does make you very vulnerable. Using it on weaker characters, you can do this, but maybe only firing it once. because then you still have quite a lot of your barriers left. Twice if necessary, but not usually. This move is very effective on Dragoons and Geth Pyros, because they're armor reliant, but it's quite powerful on any character. The next move I'll be talking about is Biotic Charge. Biotic Charge, the way I've leveled it up is so I can charge into a pack of enemies and I can actually take down multiple enemies in a single pack. This is usually only dealing with weaker enemies such as cannibals, husks, assault troopers, and Geth soldiers. As stronger enemies won't take nowhere near as much damage because its damage output is so low. For the higher rounds, I would use this ability as more of a getaway technique compared to a damage dealer. And if you get away to like an assault trooper off in the distance or a weaker character like that, you'll fill your barrier bar back up, so you can use Phase Disruptor on a strong enemy that your friends are trying to take out, or if you're playing solo, just use it as a getaway technique. It can be used quite efficiently though for taking down enemies because the recharge speed is quite good to use. So if you just go around Biotic charging really weak enemies in maybe a silver mode or a gold mode, you can Biotic charge and then shotgun them if you leveled up the shotgun synergy instead of the power synergy. This can be used efficiently though, especially with Biotic Slash, because it will do a lot of damage afterwards. So Biotic charging into something and then you're firing it at a strong enemy that you're trying to take down will do a lot of damage. Especially since Biotic Slash is powerful as it is, Biotic Charge will just be used as a getaway technique. One of the final moves I'll be talking about that is really, really important to the N7 Slayer is its Biotic Slash. Now this is one of my favourite moves that I found in any character. Being able to use this cool little cinematic that you do beforehand and then actually slashing them and getting a lot of power and damage output is a really, really good move for taking out weak enemies and strong enemies. If enemies are walking, it can go through walls, and if you know there's a pack of enemies in a single spot, this move will take them out really easily. Maxing out your Biotic Slash is really important to this character. I'd definitely recommend doing it the way I told you to set it up at the very start of the video. The other way you can use it is if you're playing with someone else, you can use this move to set off Biotic explosions, the actual detonation, and it can also just be used powerfully without setting up Biotic explosions. Since it goes through walls, it's very good for running. If you Biotic charge away from something, you can also, if you're there and you know that someone's behind the wall, you can use it and still not take any damage because the character's quite weak. But using it to set up Biotic explosions will do a lot of damage, especially to atlases or any armored targets. So any Singularity or Dark Channel, any move that primes a detonation for Biotic explosions, and then using this will definitely cause some major damage to the area and to the single person you were aiming it at. Biotic Slash is just a very, very fun move to use. Being able to just run around and do the cool little cinematic and spinning around, and then knocking everyone down is very good. On higher waves, it won't be as powerful towards enemies with shields, but any unshielded enemy will take a lot of damage and will most likely be left on 1 bar of health. But other than that, you should really just use this move as much as you possibly can because the recharge speed is so low, and try to prime it for detonations because this move can be very powerful against tougher enemies. The last thing that I'll be talking about, which really isn't a move that you actually can level up other than melee damage, is this character's heavy melee. When this character heavy melees, it will teleport towards a character, kind of like Biotic Charge, but it does not fill up your Biotic your barrier meter, so please be careful with this. You're not invulnerable either after doing this for a little bit, like you are while doing Biotic Charge, but it does dish out a high amount of damage to unshielded enemies or barriers with enemies with no barrier or armor. So using this to get rid of assault troopers quickly on lower difficulties like bronze and silver is quite efficient. Or if you shoot someone and there's still a little bit of health left on gold, using this is a very efficient move. You could level this character up for more heavy melee damage, or using a weapon that does have a melee damage amplifier. But I'd recommend just using this character the way I set it up, and just using this melee as a fun technique to use around in playing bronze solo or gold or silver solo, or with a group of people. As your character is quite weak, and charging into a pack of enemies and trying to melee them all is not usually the most efficient technique. Also using singular melee, so just tapping whatever your melee button is. This does quite a lot of damage as well, and it sets it up like combos, and this also does a lot of damage. all in all, this character is definitely a lot of fun to play, and if you get it, I'd recommend speccing it out the way I did for having the most fun and being able to do high waves. This character I've spec'd it out so it's more for high waves, but you can use this for lower waves quite easily. It's a lot of fun to play with, and using it with someone else that has biotic damages, or can time your detonations, will make this character even better to play. I'd recommend using this character as maybe the second person, let one person always go in front of you to maybe take all the damage while you're dishing it out from behind. Or just try to stay back as much as you can. You can go up a bit and try to biotic charge out, but it's not usually the best technique, as getting downed with this, you only have 650 health and shields. Thanks for watching. I will upload some more videos on Thoughts On, because there's so many characters that I've just unlocked, so I will show you some more, but I really hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. Thanks.